My local resale shop was having a sale for 80% off for their 8-year anniversary. I ran over there to see what I could find. We ended up getting this green dresser and another small little nightstand. I love these type of dressers, so whenever I see them, I usually pick them up, no matter what condition they're in. I know that I'm gonna have to remove this paint. It's green and black paint, and there's some kind of lacquer over the top. And we are missing one of those hardware, so I'll have to figure something out. I used this Green Ease paint stripper for the very first time, and I did a whole entire video on it. If you wanna see that, I'll link it down in the description box below. But you basically have to keep it on your furniture. If your furniture has like a shellac or a lacquer or some type of polyurethane on it, you're gonna have to keep it on between 5 to 8 hours. And for me, that was a very, very long time. So while it was a great furniture, it's a really good product. It's all natural. It just wasn't, I think it's not really right for me because it takes so long. But I do love the Green Ease cleaner. I thought it was an amazing cleaner, and it's only $15. I say only, but I mean, it's $15. But it worked really, really well to get all of that gunk off. So I'll probably buy that again. Now here's what we're left with after all of the paint stripper is gone. I do have to take it outside and sand it, but it's some kind of burled wood. Now somebody said it's burled walnut, but I do believe it's burled mahogany, and it's also burled on the top. Burled wood actually happens when the tree is sick. So people usually say, oh, it's so beautiful and unique. It is, but it actually happened because the tree had some kind of infection. So anyway, I take it outside and I sand the entire piece. I just want to get all that gunk off. I'm being very careful not to go through the veneer. It is veneered. Most furniture is veneered. So here I'm actually just going with 150 grit, and I'm just sanding just to make sure everything looks good and there's no more green. I also sanded the insides of the drawers and the outsides of the drawers because they just look like they were in rotten condition. This piece is pretty old, so it just had a lot of, it just wasn't very pretty. So I just wanted to sand it off. Then to get in any of the areas that my sander couldn't reach, I use a scraper. I don't love scraping with a scraper. I think that a lot of times it scratches the wood and I don't know, it's just kind of a pain for me, but I do scratch this, I do scrape the smaller areas. And then I took off all of these drawer inserts. They're so old and outdated, and I find that it smells a little bit better when you take them out. And then I end up soaking the entire piece with, I have this vinegar cleaner because there is a little bit of odor. And I wash it down with the cleaner, clean out the drawers. I keep scraping and just cleaning. This process took me 2 days. And then I ended up spraying some of that vinegar, just leaving it on there to air out in the sun, just to get rid of the odors. It doesn't... That is if you have a light odor, that works. If you have really heavy odors, you probably have to shellac the piece, which I don't love doing on the insides of drawers because then it ends up sometimes smelling like shellac. But you know what? It's either a stinky smell or a shellac smell. Sometimes you have to choose. And then I took my sander and I just continue sanding the entire piece. I wanted the entire piece to be sanded and fresh. And here I'm sanding the top with 220 grit. And then I actually move up to 320 and then 400 and then 600 because the finish I want to use on the top is the higher grit you sand it, the smoother it looks. I'm not actually gonna stain the top. I want to keep it natural. I do love the wood. I think it's so pretty, and it has some watermarks in them, but I was very lucky to be able to just sand them away. And for all those curved spaces, I use a Surf Prep sanding pad on my mouse sander, and it gets in all the curves so that I can get rid of all that gunk and all the green that are in any of those little details. And since I'm outside, I just use my leaf blower to blow away any of the dust so that I can clean the entire piece down. And again, I'm cleaning with my vinegar cleaner. It's a mixture of this vinegar cleaner that I buy at Home Depot, and then you dilute it a little bit with water. And I'm just washing it down, making sure to get rid of everything that's on there. And I even wash in those cubbies because they're so dusty and just musty and dusty. Now I'm using shellac in the spray can. You can see how careful I am not to miss any of the areas. I actually used 1.5 cans of this shellac on the piece without touching the top. I did not do the top or the top trim, but I shellacked everywhere: the drawer fronts, the cubbies, the sides, the legs, and I mean, I still ended up having bleed through. A lot of people have said to me since I've done this that they will only use bin when priming, but I've used both and both have worked really, really great. So I think this piece was just a super bleeder, and probably because I used that cleaner from the Green Ease that also takes off some of this stain. I think that's what happened there, why it was bleeding so much. So when I started to do my project, this was the original idea. I was going to add this decoupage paper. I had painted, after I shellacked, I painted a white base on the bottom, and I ended up having to take it off because of all those brown marks. Those are the tannins coming through. And I also did a video all about tannins and shellac. I'll link that in the description box below too if you want to watch that next, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I used my heat gun and a scraper, and I had to take all of this off. I'm kind of glad that this ended up happening because I love the results that I have now on the piece, but this was my first idea. I thought it was going to be really pretty. I went back and forth for over a week about whether I should restore this or paint it. And I ended up painting it because the reality is, as lovely as that wood is, it's not going to sell in my area as is. So I do need to sell these pieces. I'm not keeping it for myself. So I have to paint it, and using a beautiful floral and colors usually sells pretty quick for me. So here I go again, back outside sanding. And then I know better. So when I'm going to bring it back in the house, I'm going to use 2 coats of bin for this one. And I actually end up doing 2 coats of Zinssers bin with my roller. And then when that dries, I add 2 coats of Dixie Belle's Bonding Boss also, which I find to be, it's their new water-based formula. I think it's water-based. It works really, really good. So just to make sure that I had enough protection on there, I used that as well. Now, I knew that I wanted to dress this piece up, so I'm gonna make a couple of molds. They're trim molds, and whenever I'm using some resin, I use my mask and my gloves. This one is a 10-minute fast curing, low viscosity, low odor. It's paintable, you can drill it. It's the PU resin from Let's Resin. And I'm also using this trim from one of the IOD molds. I'm gonna link all of this down in the description box. So Let's Resin sent this to me maybe 2 months ago for my another project that I did. So I have all of this resin left over, and it's another one. You add equal parts and then you mix it together. You get 2 minutes of working time, and then you pour it in your molds, wait 10 minutes for it to cure, and then you can take your mold out. I love this resin. And let me tell you why. Because it comes in 60 ounces. So part A is 30 ounces, part B is 30 ounces, and I think it's $50 for 60 ounces. Where the other one, I was using Alumilite for a very long time, and that one comes in like 16 ounces and is $20. So the price, it's a little bit more upfront for the Let's resin, but you get so much more. You get more than double. I think you get more than triple, right? 2, 4, 6. Yeah, you get triple the amount. And that's so worth it for me because I always make more than just one mold at a time. I mean, here, look, I made, I think, 20 of them. So then I am using my Dixie Belle's mud to fill in these holes. I decided that I want to use that same hardware. I don't want to buy new hardware. I'm going to fill in the holes, wait for it to dry, and then I will sand them flush. And then I can, since I'm only missing one of the hardwares, I can just use 2. And once that's done, I'm gonna start painting the piece. So our base color is this cobblestone. So my next color that I'm gonna add is this muscadine wine. And we're gonna go down to the bottom here. And again, it's my first coat. I always add 2 coats, so whatever I'm gonna do on this first coat, I'm just gonna do on the second coat also, and just refine it. And for this, I'm just not going for that perfect blend, so I'm doing a lot of swirl marks. I kind of want it to be, I just want to make like a dramatic, cloudy, just beautiful background because I am going to use a furniture transfer. I'm making sure to keep the paint everywhere wet so that it doesn't dry on me and I can't blend it. And I'm just mixing the 2 colors together, going in all different directions. I'm looking for a variation of, light, dark, of a variation of colors while I'm blending. So now I want to add some tea rose just to soften a little bit of it up and to add more dimension and just like, just something different. And you can go in circles and then kind of smooth it out. So, and then I see down here, I feel like that's pretty harsh. Let's soften it up. Add those circles again. Make sure it's still wet. Okay, and then my last color is going to be the sandbar. I want to add the sandbar to just some of it, just to break it up, just to add some light in there too. So maybe like over here. And of course this is actually gonna dry much darker. So as I say that, let's add some bright lighter, a little bit lighter over here. And again, this is just my first coat. I know it's kind of crazy to have to do it all over again, but it just, once you blend this, when you go this hard on your first blend, it ends up, the results just end up so beautiful. If I was to leave those harsh lines, for me, the blend is not as pretty. Now, I always have my dry brush, And afterwards, I'm just gonna go through with my dry brush and make sure that that there's none of these lines here, if you can see them. So yeah, we're just softening those lines. And then I have a rag where I can wipe my dry brush. If it's too heavy with one color. Okay, and then our last color for real is gonna be, where is it? Coffee bean. And I'm gonna add this dark coffee bean to the legs and to this bottom. But it's gonna be blended with the muscadine wine. So it's gonna create a different color. So here I just loaded a little bit of muscadine wine and we're going back to that bottom. And you see we're blending that out and it just looks so pretty. I'm just going back and forth for this. Oh yes, and a little bit up the sides with that coffee bean will add just a darker hue. You know, don't be afraid to mess around when you're doing this because you can really create some beautiful colors. All right, and I'm gonna call that good for now, and I'm gonna finish the other side and then we'll do the second coat. But before I add my second coat, I have to add the trim that I made with the molds. So I'm using E6000. Usually I would have done this before my first coat, but I don't know, I completely forgot. I worked on those molds for like a whole day and I forgot about them. But it's gonna make it so pretty that I have to add it. And one way to do this is to lay the piece on its back. But I don't have help here and I don't want to hurt myself. It's very heavy. So I just end up using my blue tape and I'm taping them up. And then it takes about 24 hours for it to dry. And I love this trim because it is a repeating pattern. So you can just keep adding it and it looks like one giant long piece. Now for the bottom, I'm adding a Would You Bend. And I have a bunch of these. They're so pretty, they're so easy to use, and one pack comes with 2 of them. So I just add my Titebond wood glue and I add that to the back and then I glue it on. Now you can use your heat gun and you can bend it onto the piece, but my piece is pretty straight and the Would You Bend is pretty straight, so I just apply it and then use my heat gun to make sure that it's on really, really well. And then once I know it's on, I just use my water mister to take any of the excess glue that came out, and I just use a brush and I just clean it up. And I'm not going to show you the entire second coat, but now that I have the molds on, I can add that second coat, and now I need it to cover the molds. So I'm using the muscadine wine to cover the top mold, and then I'll use my coffee bean to cover the Would You Bend on the bottom. So I'm going to apply that second coat the first way, or the same way that I did the first coat, just making this little variation. And now that the second coat is on and dry, I'm adding this new transfer by Dixie Belle Paint Company called Savi's Bouquet. They sent me this transfer like literally the day after the other decoupage paper. I had to remove it. So it was almost meant to be. It was like perfect timing. I just love this transfer. Immediately when I saw it, I fell in love. It's very neutral, so I think adding that flower that you can see, that rose right there, is the only pink, like really pink flower in the whole transfer. So I think the pinkish purple background is perfect to bring out, like, it just complements with the neutrals. And the transfer comes in 4 large pieces. I love the large transfers for the drawer fronts. It just makes such a beautiful statement. And it's really easy to apply. They've really upped their transfer game, I have to say. It comes off the backing paper pretty easy. You just stick it on, and then you take that front paper off. It comes with the stick. I'm just using the stick to rub that transfer on there while removing that front paper. Because it came in the 4 pieces, it's really easy to line the transfer up. And I just continue applying the transfer in the same way. And then I'm going up to the top. I want to take this blue tape off the top, and I can see that I have a little bit of my primer poking out, and there's some areas where I didn't get to paint, so I'm using the muscadine wine just to do some touch-ups. And then I'm going to use Dixie Belle's Clear Coat in Gloss, and I'm going to mix it with Let's Resin's metallic powder. It's like these metallic pigment powders. You just add a little bit to your sealer, and I think the high gloss sealer makes it really, really shiny, and mix it up. And then I'm going to paint my trim. I'm painting it. I'm actually using a makeup brush to paint it, but you can use your paintbrush, whatever kind of brush you like. And it's supposed to be bronze, but it almost, maybe because it's over the muscadine wine, it looks like it's a rose gold. And I'm in love. I love it. I add it to the Would You Bend also. Then I'm going to use one of the chrome markers in the color Copper that Let's Resin sent me. And I'm going to link all this in the description box below if you're interested. It's like a gilding marker. It's just a little bit of a different color. It sort of looks a little goldish copper over the bronze. And I continue adding the chrome marker to the top of the raised details, the top trim. Now, I know that this stuff stays on really, really well because I've had it for about a month now, and my husband used it on the rims of his car where there was a little bit of rust. We had the silver one, and it stays. We've had like major thunderstorms. He's been, in the mud and the puddles and all that, and it's held up really well. So I'm not worried about it holding up. Now, as you can see, the trim on this piece is different. It's a different wood than the top. So I'm going to use Carts and Millie's How Now. It's a water-based stain just to stain the trim to match the top, because I'm using a new sealer for the top and I want to make sure that the colors are not so different. I would like it to have that nice warm feel, just like the top is going to have. Now for the top, I'm using Odie's oil. This is a universal finishing oil. I bought the kit from Amazon, so it comes with the terry cloth towels, it comes with the little pads to put it on, and it comes with the tongue, like the little craft sticks. It comes with directions. I just followed the directions. I watched so many videos. I really did my research before buying it because it's a little bit more pricier than like just a regular wax, but it's not a wax, it's a finishing oil. So once I put it on, it's gonna last for, it could last for like a year or a couple years. It's supposed to be a really great product. I was choosing between Odie's oil, Rubio's, and Osmo's, and the directions for Odie's oil were so simple that I went with Odie's. You just apply it to the little like burnishing pad that they put in the kit. I cut it down because I know I'm going to use this way more than just once. According to the directions and all the videos I watched, you're supposed to apply the oil to the little burnishing pad that they supply you with until it's saturated, and then you're going to apply it in the direction of the wood grain. So I put a tiny bit on at first. I didn't actually put enough on. And that's because I was a little nervous. If you apply too much of the oil and you can't get it all off with your terry cloth, then you're gonna have like a bad application. So you wanna use as little as possible to get the best results. And you can already see it's beautiful. That is why I sanded to the 600, because I guess the higher grit, the smoother you can get it, the shinier it's going to be once you apply the oil. So you can see it's just super shiny, and it looks like there's like lines in the wood. That's actually just the burled wood. That's the design in the wood. And I did apply it over that water-based stain, and it brought it to life. It just made it so gorgeous. I looked everywhere online and I wanted to see if you can use this over paint to seal, but I didn't find anything. And it's a lot of like restoration people who use this. So I didn't find an answer, but I would love to know. So according to the directions, you want to leave it on for at least 40 minutes, but no longer than 20 hours. After a couple hours, I came back. I did apply a second coat. Because I thought that it definitely needed it. This wood was so dry. I applied one more coat just to make sure I had enough on there. And then after a couple hours, I come back with my terry cloth and I'm just buffing it. I'm wiping any excess off, which there really isn't any because it just drank it up. And I didn't use too much. And I am loving the way that it looks. And I love the way it looks with the paint. Now for the hardware, I'm using Barkeeper's Friend, and this is a powder. It works much better as a paste, and you can actually buy the paste, which is way better, but I'm just trying to clean it up, so I'm adding my water mister to make a paste with the powder, just using what I have. And then once it's clean, I'm gonna use my chrome marker from Let's Resin again, and I am gonna like use it like a gilding wax, but it's not a gilding wax, it's a chrome marker. And here's a reminder of what we started with. And here it is today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another furniture makeover.